everyone, welcome back to my transformational series episode 2, Letting Go Without Any Guilt, the hardest part of growth. Have you ever held on to something you knew was hurting you but you still couldn't let it go? Not because you didn't understand the situation, not because you didn't feel the pain, but because somewhere deep inside you were still attached to the memories and attached to the comfort. Somewhere deep inside you were still attached to the memories, attached to the comfort, attached to the version of the person or situation that once felt right. And even when everything changed, you stayed. And the worst part is, you didn't just stay, you convinced yourself to stay. You told yourself it's not the bad, maybe it will get better. I shouldn't give up so easily. What if I regret leaving? So you kept holding on even when it started costing you your own peace. Let me tell you something honestly. Letting go is not hard because you are weak. It is hard because you are a human. And you just don't let go of people. You let go of memories, of emotions, of expectations, of a version of life you once believed in. That's what makes it painful. And you are not just losing something, you're not just losing something, you're grieving something that is still alive. Sometimes the hardest goodbyes are not when something ends completely, but when it slowly changes into something you don't recognize anymore, and you are still stuck between what it was and what it has become. You keep remembering how things used to be, and the conversations, the efforts, the care, the small moments that meant everything, and you hold on to those memories as proof that maybe, just maybe, in case it can go back to that. But deep down you already know it won't. And that is where the real struggle begins, because your mind understands the truth but your heart resists it. You know you deserve better, but you are afraid of losing what you already have, even if what you have is not good for you anymore. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you stayed in something just because you were used to it? Not because it made you happy, not because it helped you grow, but simply because it was familiar. You know what? Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace. At least you know what to expect. You know how they will act. You know how things will go wrong. You know how you will feel. And somehow that predictability becomes comfort. But what you don't realize is that every time you choose familiarity over growth, you are choosing to stay the same, and staying the same when you know you need to grow creates a different kind of pain, a silent one, a slow one. And you start feeling heavy, drained, unmotivated, not because life is hard, but because you are holding on to things that are not meant to stay in your life anymore. Here is the truth. Not everything is meant to stay. Not every person is meant to grow with you. Not every connection is meant to last forever. Some people come into your life just to teach you something. Some situations exist just to shape you, and once this purpose is done, they're supposed to leave. But we don't let them. We hold on, we try to fix, we try to force, we try to bring back what is already gone. And in that process, we lose ourselves. Ask yourself this: are you holding on because it is right, or because you're afraid to let go? Because those are two very different things. Sometimes you don't stay because we love something. We stay because we fear emptiness, we fear starting over, we fear being alone, we fear that maybe we won't find something better. So we settle for less effortless, respectless peace, and slowly we start believing that this is all we deserve. But this is not. You're not meant to shrink yourself to keep something in your life. You're not meant to sacrifice your peace just to maintain a connection. You're not meant to stay in places that make you uncomfortable. And slowly we start believing that this is all we deserve, but this is not. You are not meant to shrink yourself to keep something in your life. You're not meant to sacrifice your peace just to maintain a connection. You are not meant to stay in places that make you question your worth. And yet you don't, because you are not weak, but because letting go feels like a loss. But sometimes letting go is not a loss. Sometimes it is a return to yourself, a return to your peace, a return to your version of you that existed before. You start tolerating things you should not have to. Think about who you were before all this, before the overthinking, before the emotional exhaustion, before constantly adjusting yourself for someone else. You are lighter, clearer, and more yourself, and now you're tired, not physically but mentally, emotionally, because holding on takes energy, a lot of it. So, what does letting go actually mean? It does not mean you stop caring overnight, it does not mean you forget everything, it does not mean it stops hurting immediately. Letting go means accepting reality as it is, not as you wish to be. You know, uh, letting go means choosing your peace over your attachment. Letting go means understanding that just because something once felt right does not mean it still is. And most importantly, letting go means giving yourself permission to move on without guilt, because guilt is what keeps you stuck. You feel guilty for leaving, you feel guilty for choosing yourself, you feel guilty for not trying one more time. But ask yourself, how many more times will you try something that is clearly not working out? How many more chances will you give before you finally accept the truth? There comes a point where trying more is not strength, it is a self neglect. You have to understand that choosing yourself is not selfishness, it is necessary. You cannot keep pouring into something that keeps emptying you. At some point, you have to step back and say, it is not good for me anymore. And that is okay. You do not need a dramatic ending. You do not need a closure from the other person. You do not need everything to make perfect sense. Sometimes closure is a decision, a quiet one, where you simply decide, I deserve better than this, and you walk away. Not with anger, not with hatred, but with clarity. And yes, it will hurt you. You will miss them. You will think about what could have been. You will question your decision, and that is normal, until one day you realize it does not hurt the same anymore. You do not think about it as much, you do not feel that heaviness anymore, and that is when you know you let go, not because you were forced to, but because you choose to. At the end of the day, your life will always reflect what you decide to hold on to. And so choose wisely, choose what grows you, choose what respects you, choose what gives you peace, and most importantly, choose yourself. Because your transformation does not just happen when you start something new, it also happens when you finally have the courage to let go of what no longer belongs to you in your life. So ask yourself honestly, what are you still holding on to that you know you need to release? And when you're finally going to let it go, welcome to the transformational series, where we do not just talk about the change, we become it. And this is your transformation. I'll see you in the next one. Tab tak ke liye, take care. Bye.